I'm staring at my laptop screen for what feels like the 100th time tonight, watching the cursor blink against the stark white background of my overdue invoices spreadsheet, and the numbers blur together until they stop meaning anything at all except failure. The grindhouse is nearly empty now at 9 p.m. on a Friday, just me in my corner booth surrounded by the evidence of my unraveling life. Crumpled sketches that clients rejected, empty sugar packets from the 3 refills I've nursed over the past 4 hours, and my ancient laptop held together with electrical tape and desperate prayers. The warm, amber lighting that usually makes this place feel cozy and artistic now just feels like a stage spotlight illuminating exactly how far I've fallen. 28 years old and still counting pennies for coffee, while my design degree collects dust on a wall I might not have next month. The jazz music playing softly through the speakers is something mournful with a saxophone, and I think about how the musician probably understands this feeling, this sensation of pouring your soul into something that the world doesn't seem to want or need or value. Outside the windows, the street has gone dark, and I can see the first drops of rain beginning to streak down the glass, which means I'm going to get soaked on my walk home, because I couldn't afford to fix my car last month, and an umbrella feels like a luxury I can't justify. The barista disappeared into the back room 10 minutes ago, probably hoping I'll take the hint and leave so she can close early. But I have nowhere else to go, no one waiting for me, nothing but my shoebox apartment with the eviction notice I've been pretending doesn't exist taped to my door. That's when he walks in, and everything about him is wrong for this place, wrong for this neighborhood, wrong for my life. He's wearing a navy suit that probably costs more than my rent, tailored so perfectly it looks like it was built specifically for his body, and there's an expensive watch catching the light on his wrist, the kind that tells you more about a person's bank account than their punctuality. His dark hair is styled with that effortless precision that actually takes a lot of effort. And his face is the kind of handsome that makes you suspicious, like he must be an actor or a model or some kind of scam artist who uses his looks as a weapon. But it's his eyes that catch me off guard when he walks straight to my table without hesitation, steel gray and intense, and there's something in them that doesn't match the polished exterior, something almost boyish and panicked. He sits down across from me without asking permission, and my hand instinctively moves toward my phone, because this is how horror movies start: beautiful strangers and empty coffee shops and women alone. Then he says the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. I know this sounds insane, but I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for one dinner. Tonight. I'll pay. You $5,000. I actually laugh, a sharp, nervous sound that echoes in the empty shop, because this has to be a joke, some kind of prank or social experiment or fever dream, brought on by too much caffeine and not enough food. But he doesn't laugh with me, doesn't smile, doesn't break character if this is a character, and I realize with a cold settling in my stomach that he's completely serious. His hands are clasped on the table between us, and I notice his knuckles are scarred, these small white lines that seem at odds with everything else about him, like there's a story there that doesn't match the expensive suit and the perfect hair. I should tell him to leave, should call for the barista, should do anything except sit here staring at him like he's speaking another language, but my traitorous brain is already doing math, calculating that $5,000 is exactly what I need to keep my apartment and pay my overdue bills and maybe even fix my car. My mother is in town for one night, he continues, leaning forward with an intensity that makes it hard to look away. She's been sick, very sick, and all she wants is to meet the woman I've been telling her about. Except that woman doesn't exist. I find my voice finally, though it comes out rougher than I intended. Why would you lie to your dying mother about having a girlfriend? He flinches slightly at my bluntness, but he doesn't look away, and I can see real pain in those gray eyes now, raw and honest in a way that makes my chest tight. Because she worries, he says quietly, about me being alone, about my work. This would give her peace. The jazz music swells in the background, filling the silence between us while I try to process this, Try to understand what kind of person I'm dealing with. This is crazy, I finally say. I could be anyone. A serial killer, a con artist. For the first time, his mouth quirks into something almost like a smile, though it doesn't reach his eyes. I'm an excellent judge of character, he says, and I'm desperate. Please, just 3 hours of your time. Then he does something that changes everything. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a stack of $100 bills, real physical cash that he slides across the table toward me. And I can see Benjamin Franklin's face repeated over and over, 50 times. 5,000 reasons to say yes to this insanity. My hands are shaking when I reach out to touch the money. Not taking it, but just verifying that it's real. That this is actually happening. Steam rises from the espresso machine behind the counter, creating this intimate fog between us. And I realize we're completely alone now. The barista still in the back, the street outside empty except for the rain that's picking up, drumming against the windows with increasing urgency. I think about my eviction notice, about the clients who haven't paid me, about the stark loneliness of my life that makes me wonder if anyone would even notice if I disappeared. I think about his mother, dying and worried, wanting nothing more than to know her son isn't alone. I think about 3 hours, just 3 hours of pretending, of playing a role, of being someone's girlfriend in a way that might actually matter to someone even if it's based on a lie. The amber lighting makes his face look softer now, more vulnerable, and I notice he's barely breathing as he waits for my answer. Like everything hinges on this moment. "What's your name?" I ask. Because if I'm going to do this insane thing, I should at least know who I'm doing it for. "Dominic," he says. "Dominic Russo." And outside the rain falls harder, trapping me here in this moment. This decision, this point where my safe ordinary life could become something else entirely. I look at the money, at his desperate eyes, at my laptop screen with its damning numbers, at the dark, rainy street where I'd have to walk home alone to my empty apartment and my empty life. 3 hours, I say, and I'm not sure if I'm asking or agreeing. Just 3 hours. He nods quickly, relief washing over his features. Just 3 hours. I have a car waiting outside. I'll take care of everything. You just have to smile and hold my hand and let my mother believe that someone loves me. The way he says it, like being loved is some impossible thing he can only pretend at, breaks something in me. I close my laptop, gathering my scattered sketches and shoving them into my bag, and when I stand up my legs feel unsteady, like I'm about to walk off a cliff, but I'm doing it anyway. He stands too, taller than I expected, and he waits while I grab my worn jacket, doesn't rush me, even though I can feel the urgency radiating off him. The barista emerges from the back room looking surprised that we're both here, and Dominic pulls out his wallet and leaves a $100 bill on the counter for my coffee refills, which is such an absurd tip that she just stares at it in shock. Then we're walking to the door together, and he holds it open for me, this small gesture of courtesy that seems important somehow, and the rain hits my face cold and sharp and real. There's a black Mercedes waiting at the curb, sleek and expensive and completely out of place in this neighborhood. And when he opens the passenger door for me, I hesitate one last moment on the edge of this decision. But then I think about $5,000 and 3 hours, and a dying woman who just wants to know her son is loved. And I slide into the leather interior, breathing in the scent of wealth and danger and possibility. Dominic gets in beside me, and as we pull away from the grindhouse, I watch it disappear in the rearview mirror, this safe, familiar place where I've spent so many Friday nights alone. And I wonder if I'll ever be that version of myself again, or if I'm about to become someone completely different. The Mercedes moves through the city like it owns the streets, and maybe it does, and Dominic is talking fast, his words tumbling over each other with an urgency that makes my heart race. "We met at an art gallery 6 months ago," he says, "the Morrison exhibit at the Downtown Contemporary. You were there looking at the abstract pieces, and I approached you because you looked like you actually understood what you were seeing. I tried to absorb the details, nodding along while watching the neighborhoods transform outside my window from familiar rundown blocks to areas I've only seen in magazines, where buildings gleam with wealth and perfect landscaping. You're a graphic designer, which is true, so that's easy. And we bonded over modern art and Italian food and old movies. Keep it simple, keep it close to the truth. I'm supposed to be reserved but warm with his mother, affectionate but not over the top, in love but not theatrical about it. Then he pulls out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and opens it to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with small diamonds that catch the passing streetlights. And my breath catches, because this is real, this is expensive, this is the kind of gift that means something. So it looks like I give you gifts, he says quietly. And he takes my wrist, with surprising gentleness, and fastens the bracelet around it, his fingers warm against my skin. The weight of it feels foreign and thrilling and terrifying all at once. Carmelo's is the kind of restaurant I've walked past 100 times, but never imagined entering. All old-world elegance with a doorman who opens Dominic's car door like he's been expecting us, like we're royalty or celebrities or something equally impossible. Inside, the air smells like garlic and wine and old money, and a man in an immaculate suit appears immediately, greeting Dominic by name with a deference that seems almost fearful. "Mr. Russo, your party is waiting in the private dining room. Everything has been prepared exactly as you requested." We follow him through the main restaurant where other diners glance up and then quickly away, and I notice the way conversations pause as we pass, the way eyes follow Dominic with something that isn't quite respect and isn't quite fear, but somewhere in between. The private room is everything Dominic promised it would be. Dark wood paneling and oil paintings of the Italian countryside, a single table set with crystal and china that probably costs more than my entire apartment, candles casting dancing shadows that make everything feel intimate and theatrical. And there she is, Vittoria Russo, seated in a wheelchair at the head of the table, and she's smaller than I expected, more fragile, with paper-thin skin and eyes that have seen too much but still hold warmth. There's a nurse standing behind her, professional and watchful, and another man at the table who can only be Luca, younger than Dominic by a few years, handsome in a sharper, more dangerous way, and the look he gives me is pure calculation. Dominic transforms the moment his mother sees him, his whole face softening into genuine joy, and he crosses to her quickly and kisses both her cheeks with such tenderness that I feel like I'm intruding on something private. "Mama," he says, and even his voice is different, warmer, younger somehow. "This is Claire. I want you to meet her." Victoria's eyes find mine, and they're dark, like Dominic's, but softer, kinder, and when she extends her hand, I take it carefully, afraid of hurting her, and her grip is surprisingly strong. "So you are the one who has captured my Dominic's heart," she says with an Italian accent that makes every word sound like music. "Come, let me look at you." I move closer, and she reaches up to touch my face with both hands, studying me like I'm a painting she's trying to understand, and there are tears in her eyes that make my chest tight with guilt. "You have kind eyes, Claire. My Dominic needs kindness in his life." I manage to smile and say thank you, trying not to think about how this sweet woman is being lied to, how her relief at seeing her son happy is based on nothing real. Luca clears his throat and the spell breaks. "Shall we sit?" he says, and there's something pointed in his tone that makes me nervous. Dominic pulls out a chair for me next to his mother and across from Luca, and when he sits beside me, he immediately takes my hand, lacing our fingers together on the table where everyone can see. My hands are trembling, and I hope no one notices, but Dominic squeezes reassuringly, his thumb rubbing small circles on my palm. The dinner begins with wine being poured by a server who treats Dominic like visiting royalty, and Vittoria starts asking questions in her gentle way about how we met, and I recite the story Dominic created, trying to make it sound natural, trying to remember that I was supposedly looking at abstract art when he approached me. She smiles and nods and asks what I loved about the exhibit, and I improvise based on the art books I've paged through at bookstores I can't afford to buy from, talking about color theory and emotional resonance until she's nodding with approval. But Luca isn't buying it. I can tell by the way he leans back in his chair with his arms crossed, watching me like I'm a suspect in an interrogation. "So Claire," he says with false casualness, "what do you know about our family business?" The question hangs in the air, heavy and dangerous, and I feel Dominic tense beside me, his hand tightening almost imperceptibly on mine. I meet Luca's eyes and force myself to hold his gaze. "He keeps work and personal life separate," I say carefully. "I respect that." Luca's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "How modern of you. Most women want to know everything about their man's life." "I'm not most women," I reply, and I mean it to sound confident, but I'm terrified inside. Terrified of saying the wrong thing, of revealing that I met Dominic less than an hour ago. Dominic shifts in his seat and says something in Italian, rapid and harsh, and Luca responds in the same language, and even though I don't understand the words, I can hear the warning in Dominic's tone and the challenge in Luca's. Vittoria interrupts them with a gentle chiding, also in Italian, and they both fall silent like chastened children. She turns to me and pats my hand. "Forgive my sons. They forget their manners when they argue. Tell me, Claire, do you cook?" The conversation moves to safer topics, and I start to relax slightly, answering questions about my work and my apartment and my life, mixing truth with the lies Dominic created, and Vittoria listens with genuine interest, asking about my design projects and nodding with approval. The food arrives, and it's incredible. Osso buco that falls off the bone and pasta that tastes like someone's grandmother made it with love. And for a while we just eat and the candles flicker, and it almost feels real. This pretense of being Dominic's girlfriend, of being welcomed into his family. Vittoria talks about Dominic's childhood, stories about him as a boy that make him groan with embarrassment. And I watch this powerful, intimidating man become someone's son, someone's little boy who once got in trouble for bringing home stray cats. "I'm so glad he has you," Vittoria says at one point, reaching across the table to squeeze both our hands together. "His work, it's so important but so dangerous." A mother worries. "But knowing he has someone to come home to, someone to keep him safe, it gives me peace." The guilt crashes over me like a wave, and I have to look down at my plate because I can't meet her eyes, can't face the genuine relief and joy in her face when everything she believes is a lie. Then I notice things that make my unease grow, details that don't fit the narrative of a successful businessman that Dominic seems to represent. The way the restaurant manager appears at the door and catches Dominic's eye, hovering nervously until Dominic gives a small shake of his head. The extreme deference, almost fear, that every staff member shows him, the way they practically bow when refilling his wine. Through the window I can see the city lights glittering in the rain, and I notice security cameras in the corners of the private room, more than seems necessary for a normal restaurant. When Luca shifts in his seat, his jacket falls open slightly, and I see it, the dark shape of a shoulder holster, and my heart starts racing because normal people don't wear guns to dinner with their mother. The manager appears again, more insistent this time, and approaches Dominic's chair and bends down to whisper something. "Mr. Russo, there's a situation requiring your attention." Dominic's jaw tightens, and for a moment I see something dangerous flash in his eyes, something cold and hard that makes him look like a completely different person. "Not tonight," he says quietly, but with absolute authority. "Nothing is more important than this." The manager nods and disappears, and I'm left wondering what kind of situation requires Dominic's attention at a restaurant, what kind of business he's really in. I excuse myself to go to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe, to process, to figure out what I've gotten myself into. The bathroom is as elegant as the rest of the restaurant, all marble and gold fixtures, and I grip the edge of the sink and stare at my reflection, at the bracelet glittering on my wrist, at the fear in my own eyes. I pull out my phone with shaking hands and text my best friend Sarah, the only person who might notice if I disappear. I'm at dinner with a stranger pretending to be his girlfriend for money. If I disappear, his name is Dominic Russo. I hit send and then delete the message from my phone, paranoid suddenly about leaving evidence. When I return to the dining room, Vittoria is talking about how she'll return to Italy tomorrow, how this visit has been everything she hoped for, how she can go back knowing her Dominic is truly happy. Luca is still watching me with those calculating eyes, and I know he doesn't believe the performance, but Vittoria believes it, and that's what matters. Dominic stands when I approach the table and pulls out my chair again, his hand resting briefly on my shoulder, and the touch feels both protective and possessive in a way that makes me shiver. The rest of dinner passes in a blur of rich food and careful conversation, and the growing certainty that Dominic Russo is not just wealthy, not just powerful, but something else entirely, something dangerous that I don't have a name for yet, but can feel in the way people treat him, in the gun his brother wears, in the situations that require his attention even during dinner with his dying mother. The drive away from Carmelo's starts in silence, Luca and the nurse taking Vittoria back to her hotel in another car, while Dominic and I sit in the Mercedes with the rain drumming on the roof and the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between us. I stare out the window watching the wealthy district give way to middle-class neighborhoods, and then to areas closer to my own rundown corner of the city, and the whole time my mind is racing with questions I'm not sure I want answered. Finally, I can't take it anymore, and I turn to him, my hands shaking with an anger I didn't know I was carrying. What kind of work requires armed bodyguards and terrified waiters? I ask, and my voice comes out harder than I intended, but I don't care because I deserve answers. I deserve to know what I just participated in. Dominic keeps driving, his eyes on the road, his jaw tight, and the silence stretches for 1 block, 2 blocks, 3, until I think he's not going to answer at all. Then he pulls over suddenly into an empty parking lot overlooking the river, the kind of deserted industrial space where bad things happen in movies, and my heart starts hammering because I'm alone with a stranger who could be anyone, who could do anything. He turns off the engine, and the sudden quiet is deafening, except for the rain and the distant sound of the river moving in the darkness beyond. When he finally speaks, his voice is careful, measured, like he's choosing each word with precision. "My family has been in this city for 3 generations," he says, staring out at the black water. "We have interests in construction, shipping, waste management, several legitimate businesses, but we also have interests that exist outside conventional law." I feel my stomach drop because I know what he's saying even though he's dancing around it with corporate language and careful phrasing. "Are you telling me I just had dinner with the actual Mafia?" I say, and the word sounds absurd coming out of my mouth, like something from a movie, not something that exists in real life. He grips the steering wheel hard enough that his knuckles go white, those scarred knuckles that suddenly make terrible sense. "I don't use that word," he says quietly. "But yes, I'm the head of the Russo crime family. I inherited the position when my father was murdered 5 years ago, shot 3 times in the chest while I watched." The casual way he says it, like murder is just a fact of life, makes my whole body go cold. I reach for the door handle instinctively, some primal part of my brain screaming at me to run, to get away from this dangerous person. But the door is locked, and I fumble with the mechanism while Dominic watches me with something that looks almost like sadness in his steel-gray eyes. "People like you ruin lives," I say. And I'm angry now. Angry at him for lying. Angry at myself for being stupid enough to get in a car with a stranger. "You're criminals." He doesn't argue, doesn't get defensive, just nods slowly like he expected this reaction. "People like me keep order in places the police have abandoned,"
he says with quiet intensity. We protect our neighborhoods, we take care of our people, we make sure the streets are safe for children and old women. But I won't justify myself to you. You have every right to judge me. His honesty disarms me somehow. The fact that he's not trying to convince me he's some kind of hero, and I finally get the door unlocked and open, letting in the cold, rain-soaked air. Take me home, I say. Right now. He starts the car without argument and pulls back onto the street, and I notice he doesn't try to stop me from leaving, doesn't lock the doors, or make threats, or do any of the things I half expected. We drive in silence again, but it's different now, heavier with the weight of revealed truth, and I stare at my hands in my lap, at the bracelet he gave me that I should take off, but somehow can't make myself remove. Why did you really pick me? I ask after several blocks. Some random woman in a coffee shop. He glances at me, and there's something vulnerable in his expression that doesn't match what I now know about him. You weren't random, he says. You've been going to that coffee shop every Friday for 6 months. You're always alone. You're kind to the staff even when they mess up your order. You leave generous tips you can't afford. You're real in a way that most people in my world aren't. The admission should creep me out. The idea that he's been watching me for months, studying my habits like I'm some kind of subject in an experiment. But instead I feel something complicated. Something between flattered and frightened. My mother has late-stage cancer, he continues, his voice rougher now. She has maybe 3 months left. And all she talks about is how worried she is about me, about my life, about me being alone and in danger. She's been begging me to leave the life, to settle down, to be normal. I couldn't give her that, but I could give her the illusion of it. I could give her peace in her final months. I understand then, really understand, and the anger drains out of me, leaving just exhaustion and a strange kind of sadness. We're pulling into my neighborhood now, past the graffitied walls and broken streetlights and chain-link fences that mark the boundary of my world, and the contrast with where we just were couldn't be more stark. My building rises ahead, 6 stories of crumbling brick and flickering hallway lights visible through dirty windows. And I feel embarrassed suddenly for him to see where I live, how far I've fallen. He pulls up to the curb and reaches into his jacket, and for one terrified second, I think he's going for a gun, but instead he pulls out an envelope, thick with cash, and hands it to me. The promised 5,000 plus extra, he says. Hazard pay for dealing with my brother and lying to my mother. I'm sorry I involved you in this. You'll never see me again. I take the envelope with shaking hands and open it enough to see the bills inside, and there's way more than $5,000, maybe $8,000, enough to solve all my immediate problems, and then some. The money feels heavy, tainted somehow, but I need it too desperately to give it back. I look at Dominic and his face is carefully blank, all the warmth from dinner completely gone, replaced by something cold and remote. Thank you, I say, because what else do you say to someone who just paid you to lie to his dying mother? I open the door and step out into the rain, and I'm about to close the door and walk away from this insane night when his phone rings, loud and jarring in the quiet car. He answers in Italian, sharp and fast, and I watch his whole body language change, watch him transform from the sad man saying goodbye into something else entirely. His voice drops an octave, and his commands are sharp as knife strikes. And even though I don't understand the words, I understand the tone, the absolute authority that expects instant obedience. Luca's voice comes through the speaker, angry and urgent, and Dominic barks something back that makes me shiver. He ends the call and looks at me, and his eyes are different now, harder, colder, the eyes of someone who has killed and will kill again. There's a situation, he says. I have to go. Be safe, Claire. I nod and close the door and watch him drive away, the Mercedes disappearing into the rain, and I stand there on the sidewalk getting soaked and holding an envelope full of blood money and feeling like I just survived something I don't fully understand. Then I see him. A man in a dark jacket standing across the street, half hidden in the shadows between streetlights, and he's watching my building, watching me, and when our eyes meet, he turns and disappears into an alley with a speed that tells me he doesn't want to be seen. My stomach drops, and suddenly, the $8,000 doesn't feel like enough. Doesn't feel like anything compared to the fear flooding through me. I hear the Mercedes before I see it, the engine roaring as Dominic whips the car back around the block, and he's out and moving toward me before the car fully stops. "Get back in the car," he orders, and his voice has that same authority from the phone call, that tone that doesn't expect to be questioned. Now. I don't argue. Don't hesitate. Just run back to the passenger side and throw myself in, and Dominic is already behind the wheel pulling away before I even get my door closed. "Who is that?" I ask, my voice shaking. "Someone who now knows you were with me," he says grimly, his eyes scanning the streets around us with a professional wariness that tells me he's done this before, been hunted before, survived before. "Which makes you a target." The words hang in the air between us, heavy with implication, and I realize that the night isn't over, that I'm not safe, that getting in that car at the coffee shop was a decision I can't undo. My hands are still clutching the envelope of money, and I think about how an hour ago my biggest problem was paying rent, and now my biggest problem is that someone dangerous knows my face, knows where I live, knows I matter to Dominic Russo even though I don't, even though I'm just a random woman he paid to pretend. Except I'm not random. He said so himself. He's been watching me for 6 months, and now other people are watching me too. The river appears beside us again as Dominic drives fast through streets slick with rain, and I can see the city lights reflecting off the black water like liquid stars, beautiful and cold and indifferent to whatever happens to people like me who make stupid choices because they're desperate. I should be more afraid than I am, but mostly, I'm just tired, exhausted by the emotional whiplash of the evening, from the performance at dinner to the revelation of truth to this new danger I don't understand. "What happens now?" I ask quietly. Dominic's jaw is tight and he doesn't look at me, just keeps his eyes on the road and his hands on the wheel like he's holding on to the only thing he can control. "Now I keep you safe," he says, "whether you want me to or not." The penthouse is in a building I've passed 100 times and never imagined entering, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky like it's trying to escape the city below, and the elevator ride up feels like ascending into another world entirely. Dominic is tense beside me, checking his phone constantly, and when the doors open directly into the penthouse, I step out into a space that takes my breath away despite everything. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the entire city, lights twinkling like earthbound stars, and the furniture is all modern elegance in grays and blacks, minimalist and expensive and completely impersonal. "This is a safe house," Dominic says, moving through the space with practiced efficiency, checking locks and windows with the kind of attention that tells me he's done this before. Reinforced glass, panic room behind that panel in the master bedroom, security monitors in the office. "You'll be safe here." I turn on him, all the fear and anger and confusion of the night finally boiling over. "You can't just keep me here," I say, my voice rising. "I have a life, clients, responsibilities, people who will notice I'm gone." He pulls out his phone and swipes through it, then hands it to me without a word, and what I see makes my blood run cold. Photos of me leaving my apartment building, walking to the coffee shop, at the grocery store buying the cheapest pasta I could find, sitting in the park eating lunch alone. Surveillance images taken over days or weeks, evidence that I've been watched, studied, marked. "The Castellano organization has been probing for weaknesses," Dominic says quietly. "If they believe you're important to me, they'll use you as leverage. They'll hurt you to hurt me." "I can just disappear," I argue desperately, even though I'm looking at proof that disappearing isn't an option. "Go stay with my friend Sarah. Leave the city, something." He takes the phone back and his expression is almost pitying.
They already know where your friend lives. They know where you work, where you shop, where you go when you can't sleep at 3 in the morning. You're already marked, Claire. The only question is whether you're marked and protected or marked and vulnerable. And you'll return to all of it, he continues, his voice firm but not unkind. But not until I know you're safe. A week at most, until we resolve the situation with the Castellanos. Then I throw the envelope of money at him, and it hits his chest and falls to the expensive hardwood floor, bills scattering. I don't want blood money, I say. He looks at the scattered cash for a long moment, then bends and picks it up with calm precision, gathering every bill. All money is blood money, he says, holding it out to me. At least be honest about it. Your landlord doesn't care where your rent comes from. Your grocery store doesn't care whose blood paid for your food. The only difference is that I'm not pretending to be clean. I don't take the money back, but I don't argue either. Just stand there in this beautiful prison while Dominic makes a phone call in Italian, and a few minutes later an older man arrives, maybe 60, with silver hair and kind eyes, and the bearing of someone who has seen everything and been surprised by nothing. "This is Marcus," Dominic says. "My consigliere. He'll stay with you while I handle business." Marcus extends his hand, and I shake it automatically. "Miss Morrison," he says with old-world courtesy. "Mr. Russo doesn't bring people here. This place is his sanctuary. You should feel honored." "I feel imprisoned," I reply. And Marcus smiles gently like I've said something wise rather than bitter. "Sometimes sanctuary and prison look the same from the inside," he says. Then Dominic is leaving, pulling on a jacket and checking a gun that he pulls from a drawer before sliding it into a shoulder holster, and I watch this casual violence, this preparation for things I don't want to imagine. He pauses at the elevator and looks back at me. "I'm sorry, Claire, for all of it." Then he's gone, and I'm alone with Marcus in this penthouse that feels like a cage made of luxury. The first day passes in a haze of unreality. Marcus makes breakfast, eggs and toast that I can barely eat, and shows me how the security system works, the panic button by the bed, the reinforced door to the panic room. The guest room he puts me in is beautiful, all plush bedding and soft lighting, but it feels like an expensive hotel, impersonal and temporary. I try to work on my laptop, opening design files for clients, but I can't focus, can't make my brain function when I'm trapped in a stranger's apartment because my face is in some crime family's surveillance photos. Marcus brings me tea in the afternoon, sits with me in the living room while rain patters against the windows, and he doesn't patronize my fear or tell me everything will be fine. He just sits there, solid and calm, and somehow his presence makes it bearable. The second day, I pace like a caged animal, testing doors and windows even though I know they're locked, staring out at the city below and feeling so disconnected from normal life that I might as well be on another planet. My phone has messages from Sarah asking where I am, from clients wondering about deadlines, and I can't respond, can't tell anyone where I am or why. Marcus watches me pace but doesn't comment, just keeps bringing food and tea and occasionally making quiet conversation about nothing important. The weather, the news, safe topics that don't require me to think about surveillance photos or rival crime families. On the third day, I wake up to silence. That deep, 3 in the morning silence, when the whole city seems to be holding its breath, and I lie there staring at the ceiling of my expensive prison, wondering how this became my life. Then I hear the elevator, the doors opening, and footsteps in the penthouse. And my heart starts racing, because Marcus is asleep in the other guest room and it's too early for anyone to be here legitimately. I grab my phone ready to hit the panic button when I hear Dominic's voice, rough and tired, saying something to Marcus, who must have woken up too. I should stay in my room, should give them privacy for whatever crisis brings Dominic back at this hour. But something pulls me out of bed and down the hall in my borrowed pajamas, and when I see him, my nursing instinct overrides everything else. He's standing in the living room with one lamp on casting shadows in corners,
And there's a gash on his temple bleeding down the side of his face. His shirt is torn and dirty, his hands are covered in blood, and he looks exhausted in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness. Marcus is already moving toward the bathroom for medical supplies, but I'm closer and I reach Dominic first, my hands going automatically to his face to assess the wound. "I'm fine," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. "It's not my blood." "Sit down," I order. And maybe it's the shock, or the hour, or the fact that I sound like I know what I'm doing, but he sits on the couch without argument. Marcus appears with a first aid kit and gives me a knowing look before retreating to give us privacy. I clean the wound carefully, antiseptic on cotton gauze, and Dominic flinches, but not from pain, I can tell, but from the gentleness of the touch, like he's not used to being cared for. The gash isn't deep enough for stitches, but it's going to leave a scar, and I apply butterfly bandages with steady hands, while trying not to think about how he got it, what violence he was involved in tonight. "How do you live like this?" I ask quietly, "always looking over your shoulder?" He's silent for a moment, his eyes closed while I work. "The same way you live with no safety net," he finally says. "You adapt. You become harder." "But you don't seem hard right now," I reply. And it's true. Sitting here in the lamplight with blood on his face and exhaustion in every line of his body, he seems almost vulnerable. "That's because you're seeing me," he says, opening his eyes to meet mine. "Not many people do." I finish bandaging the wound and sit back. And we're close enough that I can smell gun oil and cologne, and the copper tang of blood, and the scent should repel me, but instead I feel something complicated, something between fear and fascination. "Your mother sees you," I say, thinking of Vittoria's gentle eyes and the way Dominic transformed around her. He closes his eyes again, and there's real pain in his expression now. "My mother sees who I was," he says, "not who I've become." We sit in silence for a while, the city glittering below us through the windows, the rain a soft soundtrack. And I should go back to my room, but I can't make myself move. I think about my own parents, about the day they chose drugs over me, about being 16 and suddenly alone in the world, about building a life out of nothing because no one was going to save me. "My parents left when I was 16, I hear myself say, and I don't know why I'm telling him this, except that the darkness and the intimacy of the moment makes confession feel natural. Walked out one day and never came back. Chose their addiction over their daughter. I built everything I have from nothing, and it still isn't enough, still isn't stable, still feels like it could all fall apart at any moment." Dominic opens his eyes and looks at me with something that might be understanding. "My father was shot in front of me when I was 27, he says. 3 bullets to the chest while I held him and he bled out in my arms. His last words were that I had to take over the family, had to be strong, had to never show weakness. I've been trying to be what he needed me to be ever since, and I don't even know who I am anymore under all of it." His hand is on the couch between us, and without thinking, I reach out and touch it, just my fingers on his scarred knuckles, and he looks at our hands like he's seeing something impossible. "I'm sorry I brought this into your life," he says quietly. "Sorry you're trapped here. Sorry you're in danger. Sorry for all of it." I should pull my hand away, should remind myself that he's dangerous and I'm his captive, and nothing about this situation is okay, but instead, I leave my hand where it is and feel his hand tremble slightly under mine. "We're both survivors," I say, "both alone, both trying to figure out how to live in a world that doesn't make it easy. Maybe that's enough for tonight." His thumb moves slightly, stroking across my knuckles, and the touch is tentative, questioning, and I don't pull away even though I should. The lamp casts shadows that make the moment feel suspended somehow, outside of normal time, and I can hear sirens in the distance, the city continuing on while we sit here in this penthouse sanctuary prison. Dominic's eyes are heavy, and I realize he's about to collapse from exhaustion. "You need sleep," I say. He nods but doesn't move. So do you. I stand up and he catches my hand before I can step away. Thank you, he says, for taking care of me, for not running, for being here. I squeeze his hand once and then let go, because if I don't, I'm afraid I won't. Get some rest, I tell him. We both need it. Back in my room, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling and feeling the ghost of his hand in mine. And I know something has shifted tonight, something I can't undo. And I'm not sure if that terrifies me or if somewhere in the terror there's something else, something that feels dangerously close to hope. I wake to the sound of gunfire, and for a long, confused moment I think I'm dreaming. That my brain has created some nightmare scenario out of the stress and fear of the past 5 days. But then there's shouting, and the unmistakable sound of breaking glass, and I realize with cold terror that this is real. This is happening. The penthouse is under attack. My door crashes open and Marcus is there, moving faster than I've ever seen him move, his gun drawn, and his face set in grim determination. "Panic room," he says, grabbing my arm and pulling me out of bed. "Now." We run through the penthouse, and I can hear more gunshots, closer now, and the sound of men shouting in Italian, and my heart is hammering so hard I think it might burst out of my chest. Marcus practically throws me through the hidden panel in the master bedroom into a small reinforced chamber, and the last thing I see before he closes the panel is his kind face trying to be reassuring. "Stay quiet, stay down. Mr. Russo is on his way." Then I'm alone in the darkness with only small emergency lights casting everything in a sickly green glow, and I curl up in the corner with my hands over my ears, trying to block out the sounds of the battle raging outside. The walls are thick and soundproofed, but I can still feel the vibrations of violence, the dull thuds of bodies hitting floors, more gunshots that make me flinch even through the reinforcement. I pull out my phone with shaking hands, but there's no signal in this reinforced tomb, no way to call for help, no way to know what's happening except through the muffled sounds that penetrate the walls. I'm praying without even realizing I'm doing it, desperate bargains with a God I'm not sure I believe in. Please let Marcus be okay. Please let Dominic get here. Please don't let me die in this beautiful penthouse that was supposed to keep me safe. Time loses meaning in the darkness, and I have no idea if minutes or hours are passing, if everyone outside is dead, if I'm going to be trapped in here until the air runs out, or the attackers figure out where I'm hiding. Then the panel opens and I scream before I can stop myself. But it's Dominic standing there, blood spattered with a gun in his hand and his eyes wild, and the first thing he says, the very first thing, is, "Are you hurt?" I shake my head because I can't find words, and then I'm launching myself at him without thinking, my arms going around his neck in pure relief that he's here, that I'm not alone, that maybe I'm going to survive this. I pull back almost immediately, embarrassed by the display, but his hands are on my shoulders steadying me, and he's doing a quick visual check for injuries with professional efficiency. "You're safe," he says firmly. "I'm here. You're safe." "What happened?" I managed to ask. Is Marcus?" "Later," Dominic says, pulling me toward the door. "We need to move now. The penthouse is destroyed. That's the first thing I notice when he pulls me out of the panic room. Furniture overturned, bullet holes spider-webbing the floor-to-ceiling windows, the smell of gunpowder thick in the air. There are bodies on the floor, 2 men I don't recognize in dark clothes with guns still in their hands, and I nearly vomit at the sight of so much blood. Marcus is sitting against the wall with one hand pressed to his shoulder, where blood seeps between his fingers. And 3 other men I've never seen before are moving through the space, checking doors and windows. "Just a scratch, boss," Marcus says when he sees Dominic looking at him, and even now he's trying to be reassuring. "I'll be fine. Take her and go." Dominic nods and guides me past the bodies, and I try not to look, but can't help it. Can't help seeing the vacant eyes and the blood pooling on the expensive hardwood floor. Evidence of violence I've only ever seen in movies. We take the service elevator down. Dominic standing in front of me like a shield with his gun still drawn, and the ride feels eternal even though it's probably less than a minute. The underground garage is all concrete and fluorescent lights, and the echo of our footsteps. And there are multiple cars waiting, black Mercedes and SUVs, and Dominic leads me to one and practically pushes me into the passenger seat. "We're leaving," he says. "Now." He drives with controlled fury, his jaw clenched and his knuckles white on the wheel, and we speed through streets that are just starting to wake up, dawn breaking at the edges of the sky. I don't ask where we're going because I don't think he knows. Don't think there's anywhere safe left. Don't think any of this has a plan anymore. Then his phone rings and I watch his whole body tense when he sees the caller ID. He answers on speaker and Luca's voice fills the car, frustrated and urgent. "The penthouse attack was a diversion," Luca says without preamble. "They grabbed Mama from the hospital 20 minutes ago. 4 men, professional. They knew exactly where she was and when to hit." Dominic makes a sound that's almost animal, raw pain and rage, and his hand tightens on the wheel hard enough that I'm afraid he'll break it. Vittoria, I think, sweet Vittoria, who touched my face and told me I had kind eyes, who just wanted to see her son happy. "What do they want?" Dominic asks, and his voice is deadly calm in a way that's more frightening than rage. "They want you," Luca says. "Surrender yourself in exchange for her release." Meeting at the old waterfront warehouse in 3 hours. It's obviously a trap. "Don't be a fool, Dominic. She's had a good life. She's ready to go. The family needs you alive more than we need her for a few more months." I watch Dominic's face crumble, watch this powerful, controlled man break in real time, watch genuine terror and anguish replace the cold authority. "I'm not ready to let her go," he says, and his voice cracks on the words. "Set up the meeting." "Dominic," Luca argues, "you walk into that warehouse and you're dead. Think about the family, think about everyone who depends on you, think." "The family needs a man who protects his mother," Dominic interrupts. "Set up the meeting." He ends the call and for a moment we just drive in silence while he tries to pull himself together, and I realize what he's planning, what he's going to do. "You can't actually be considering this," I say. "It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap," he replies, and he sounds exhausted now, drained of everything except determination. "But she's my mother. What would you do if it was someone you loved?" The question hits me harder than it should because I don't have anyone I love, I say quietly. And it's true. I've been alone for so long that I've almost forgotten what it feels like to love someone enough to die for them. Dominic glances at me, and something softens in his expression. "You have yourself," he says. "That's enough to live for." "Is it?" I ask. And I'm thinking about my shabby apartment and my struggling business and my lonely Friday nights at coffee shops. Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to die for someone else. "Some things are worth dying for," he says simply, and I know there's no argument I can make that will change his mind. We're driving through the warehouse district now, past abandoned buildings with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls, desolation that matches the despair I feel settling in my chest. The sky is lighter now, the world waking up while our nightmare continues, and I think about how somewhere people are starting their normal days, drinking coffee and checking their phones and complaining about traffic, and they have no idea that in a warehouse by the water, a man is going to trade his life for his dying mother. Dominic pulls into an empty lot overlooking the river and puts the car in park, but doesn't turn off the engine. 3 hours, he says, checking his watch. "I need to prepare. Need to call in favors. Need to set up what backup I can, even though we both know it won't be enough." He turns to me and takes my hand, and I can feel his trembling slightly, the first time I've seen him truly afraid. "After this is over, whatever happens, I need you to promise me something. Take the money, disappear, live your life. Forget you ever met me." I'm staring at our joined hands and thinking about the past 5 days, about dinner with his mother and the panic room and the moment in the lamplight when he let me see him,
Really see him. I can't promise that, I say. Can't promise to forget you. He closes his eyes and I see real pain in his face. Claire, please don't make this harder. There has to be another way, I say, even though I don't know what it is, even though I can't imagine a scenario where this ends well. There isn't, he says. And he sounds so certain, so resigned, like he's already accepted his death. But maybe that's okay. Maybe dying for her is the one good thing I can do to balance out all the bad. Maybe it's the only way I can be the son she deserves. I think about Vittoria's words at dinner, about how she worried about him being alone, about how she wanted him to leave the life and be safe. She wouldn't want this, I say. Wouldn't want you to die for her. She's dying anyway, and she knows it. She'd want you to live. Dominic opens his eyes and looks at me with such hollowness that it breaks my heart. Living without protecting the people you love isn't living, he says. It's just existing. And I'm tired of just existing. The sun is rising over the water now, light reflecting off the black surface, and I realize that in 3 hours everything will change, that Dominic Russo will walk into a warehouse and probably never walk out. And the thought of it, the finality of it, makes me want to scream. I don't know him. Not really. We've spent less than a week together, and most of that I've been his unwilling captive. But somewhere in the panic room and the lamplight confessions and the gentle way he's treated me despite everything, something has changed. I care about him, about this dangerous, complicated man who chose love over power, who's willing to die rather than let his mother suffer. And I realize sitting there in the car with dawn breaking around us that I can't let him do this alone. Can't let him walk into that warehouse without at least trying to find another way. Can't let him become another person I lose even if he was never really mine to lose. The warehouse looms ahead as we approach, all broken windows and rust-stained walls. The kind of place where bad things happen and nobody asks questions. And I can see Luca's cars already positioned around the perimeter. A dozen men trying to look inconspicuous while being obviously armed and ready. Dominic parks and turns to me with that commanding expression I've come to recognize. "Stay in the car with the guards," he says. "This isn't negotiable." I'm already opening my door before he finishes speaking. "I'm not staying in the car while you commit suicide," I say, and he actually tries to physically block me from exiting, his hand on my arm firm but not painful. "This isn't your fight," he says, and there's desperation in his voice that breaks my heart. "I made it my fight when I said yes to your insane proposal," I reply, pulling free and stepping out onto the cracked pavement. "They took your mother because of me, because you brought me to dinner, because they saw me with you. I owe her this." Dominic stares at me for a long moment, and I can see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the way his tactical mind is processing this new variable. Then something shifts in his expression, something that might be hope or might be acceptance. "You being there might actually help," he says slowly. "They don't know you're not really my girlfriend. Your willingness to walk in with me makes it seem more real, makes them think I'm truly surrendering everything for love." I take his hand before he can change his mind and our fingers lace together, his grip protective and mine steady, despite the terror coursing through me. We walk toward the warehouse entrance together, and I can feel Luca watching us from his position, can feel the weight of a dozen pairs of eyes tracking our movement, can feel the sun warming my back while we walk into shadows. The warehouse interior is cavernous, dusty light filtering through broken skylights, creating dramatic beams through the gloom, and the smell of rust and river water is overwhelming. Castellano soldiers line the walls, maybe 20 of them, all armed, all watching with the predatory stillness of men who know they hold all the power. And there in the center of this brutal space is Vittoria in her wheelchair, looking so small and fragile and terrified, and my heart clenches because this sweet woman doesn't deserve any of this.
A man steps forward from the shadows, and even though I've never seen him before, I know immediately this is Vincent Castellano, 50-something with silver hair and an expensive suit that looks absurd in this decrepit setting, power radiating from him in waves. "So this is the girl worth all this trouble," Vincent says, circling us slowly like a predator studying prey. "She doesn't look like much. I'm a struggling graphic designer from a bad neighborhood who learned to survive," I say, and my voice wavers at first but strengthens as I continue. "You think I don't recognize a losing strategy when I see one?" Vincent stops circling and looks at me with genuine interest. "A losing strategy," he repeats. "Explain." Dominic's hand tightens on mine in warning, but I push forward because we're already here, already in this impossible situation, and staying silent won't save us. "You think breaking him makes you stronger," I say, addressing Vincent directly even though my knees are shaking. "You think humiliating Dominic Russo in front of his people will cement your power? But every person in his organization will spend the rest of their lives trying to avenge this humiliation. You'll never be safe. Your children won't be safe. Your grandchildren won't be safe. The Russos don't forget, and they don't forgive." Vincent is smiling now, but it's not a kind smile. "And what would you suggest instead, girl? If you let us walk away with dignity, if you make a deal rather than demand surrender, he'll owe you," I continue, and I'm thinking about every negotiation I've ever done with difficult clients, every time I've had to convince someone that my way was better, and a Russo debt is worth more than waterfront operations. A man who owes you will work with you. A man you humiliate will destroy you even if it takes decades. Dominic is staring at me in astonishment, and I realize he had no idea I was going to do this, had no idea I would negotiate with one of the most dangerous men in the city. Then Vittoria speaks up, her voice weak but clear, and despite her illness, I can see the matriarch emerging, the woman who raised sons in this violent world. "The girl is right," Vittoria says, and Vincent turns to look at her with something that might be respect. "You have daughters, Vincent. Would you want them to be with a man who backed down to save them, or a man who stood firm? Would you want them with someone who could be broken, or someone whose word is iron? But if you humiliate my son here today, you don't break just him. You break the possibility of peace. You break the old rules we all lived by. And then what do we have except endless war?" The warehouse is silent except for the sound of water dripping somewhere and the distant cry of seagulls. Vincent looks between the three of us, his expression unreadable, and I hold my breath because I don't know if my words landed or if I just signed all our death warrants. Then he laughs, genuine and surprised. "You've got spine, girl," he says. "Fine. Different terms. Russo keeps his waterfront operations, but we split the Eastern Territories 60-40 in my favor. And he gives me his iron word, no retaliation for the mama's extended stay with us, no revenge, no plots, no hired guns in the night. We walk away clean and we work together going forward. Dominic's jaw is clenched so tight I'm afraid his teeth will crack, and I can feel the fury radiating off him in waves, but he's smart enough to recognize the better deal when he hears it. "You have my word," he says through gritted teeth. "The Eastern Territories are yours, 60-40, and there will be no retaliation." Vincent nods and gestures to his men who wheel Vittoria toward us, and Dominic releases my hand to rush to his mother, dropping to his knees beside her wheelchair and checking her over with frantic hands. "Mama, are you hurt, did they?" "I'm fine," she says, touching his face with her paper-thin hands. "I'm fine, my darling boy." They were not unkind. She looks past him to me, and her eyes are bright with understanding. "Thank you for saving my son," she says. "I was wrong about you at dinner. You're not just kind. You're strong. The kind of strong he needs." We leave the warehouse together, Dominic pushing Vittoria's wheelchair with me walking beside them. And when we step out into the morning sun breaking through clouds, it feels like surviving the night, like making it through something that should have killed us.
Luca is there immediately, relief and anger warring on his face, and he starts to say something, but Dominic cuts him off with a look. Later, Dominic says, right now I just need to get Mama somewhere safe. In the car, Dominic finally breaks, his wall crumbling as he holds Vittoria's hand and shakes with the aftermath of fear and relief. She's crying too, both of them processing how close they came to losing each other, and I sit in the front seat giving them privacy, while my own hands tremble with delayed shock. 2 weeks pass, and they feel both endless and impossibly fast. Vittoria returns to Italy for hospice care, and Dominic tells me she's at peace now, no longer worried about him because she believes he has someone, believes he's loved and protected, and not alone. The money Dominic gave me transforms my life in ways I'm still processing. A new apartment in a safer neighborhood with actual working appliances, my debts paid off, my car fixed, a buffer in my bank account that means I don't have to take every terrible client just to survive. I should feel guilty about keeping the money, but mostly I just feel grateful. Grateful for the breathing room, grateful for the security, grateful for the chance to build something stable. Friday night finds me back at the grindhouse, my corner booth, my laptop open but mostly ignored while I watch rain start to patter against the windows. The barista knows my order by heart and brings me my coffee with a smile, and the jazz music playing is something mournful with a saxophone that reminds me of another Friday night that feels like a lifetime ago. Then Dominic walks in, and my heart does something complicated in my chest, and he's wearing a well-cut suit, but he looks different somehow. Less desperate, less blood-spattered, less haunted, just a man in his 30s looking for someone. I hear there's a graphic designer who frequents this place, he says, sitting down across from me without invitation just like he did 2 weeks ago. Someone told me she's talented, brave, and has a terrible habit of getting into dangerous situations. That sounds like someone I know, I reply, and I can't help smiling. Is he looking for a real girlfriend, or does he still need someone to pretend? Dominic reaches across the table and takes my hand, his thumb tracing over my knuckles in that gesture I've come to recognize. I'm done pretending, he says, and his eyes are serious, vulnerable, open in a way I've never seen them. With you, I want everything to be real. Real is messier, I say, lacing my fingers through his. Real means dealing with your world and my past, and all the complications that come with actually choosing each other, instead of being forced together by circumstances. I know, he says, but I think we can handle messy. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he continues, not because you saved my life, though you did, but because you saw who I was, really saw me, and you didn't run. I ran, I correct him, multiple times. You kept pulling me back. Will you let me keep doing that? He asks. Pulling you back when you try to run. Only if I get to pull you back too, I say. From the darkness, from the violence, from the loneliness, from thinking you have to face everything alone. Deal, he says, and his smile is genuine and warm and transforms his whole face. Though I should warn you, my mother will want to meet you again. For real this time, no more pretending. I'd like that, I tell him honestly. She's a formidable woman. She'd say the same about you, he replies. She called me from Italy yesterday and spent 20 minutes telling me not to let you get away, that women with spine are rare and precious, and I'd be a fool to lose you. The rain is falling harder now, drumming on the windows, and I think about how 2 weeks ago this rain trapped me here with a desperate stranger. And now it's falling again, but everything is different. We're choosing this, choosing each other, choosing to try something real, despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. The coffee shop is warm and familiar around us, and the jazz music swells, and Dominic is still holding my hand across the table like he's afraid I might disappear. I'm not going anywhere, I say quietly. Not unless you want me to. I never want you to, he replies. But I understand if this is too much, if my world is too dangerous, if you need to walk away. I've already walked into a warehouse full of armed men for you, I point out. Think we're past the point of me being scared off easily. He laughs, and the sound is surprised and genuine, and I realize I've never heard him laugh before. Not really, not like this. Fair point, he says. So what happens now? I ask. Now we see if we can make this work, he says. Now we try real instead of pretend. Now we figure out how to build something together out of all this mess. The barista brings us fresh coffee without being asked, and gives me a knowing look. And outside, the rain continues to fall. But inside, we're warm and together, and talking, really talking, about his mother's care and my design work, and the complicated logistics of dating someone whose job involves things I try not to think about too hard. It's not a fairy tale ending, not perfect or simple or easy, but it's real. And real is what we both need. Real is messy and complicated and sometimes scary, but it's also honest and genuine and worth fighting for. And as I sit there with my hand in his and rain streaking the windows and jazz music filling the air, I think about how sometimes the most insane decisions lead to the most important moments. How saying yes to a desperate stranger can change everything. How pretending to love someone can somehow become real without either of you noticing when it happened. Dominic squeezes my hand, and I squeeze back, and the world continues on around us. But right now, in this moment, we're exactly where we're supposed to be.